TJ Curtis. And we are going to start off by doing a quick poll. I'll pop that up on the screen right now. Please just take a moment to fill this out, letting us know what your role is and what county you're serving. You're also more than welcome to introduce yourself in the chat if you would like.
I don't see the poll.
Oh, I didn't launch it. Sorry about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
You should see it now. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Sure thing.
Just waiting for a few more people to fill out this poll that's on your screen. If you do not see it, you can put your answers in. What is your role? Are you FPA? Are you supervisor and have credentials of an FPA? Or are you supervisor and do not hold an FPA credential? Do you have other peer roles? Are you a state employee? And are you a state employee who holds a credential, or are you a state employee and does not hold one? And other.
Give it another minute or so. There's a couple more people we need to take it. A couple people have just entered. Welcome and thank you for joining us. Going to end it. Thank you for those who took the poll. For those who just joined us, welcome to Managing Peer-to-Peer Triggers and Boundaries. It's going to be hosted by TJ Curtis. If you didn't get a chance to take the poll, you're more than welcome to introduce yourself in the chat with your name, organization, location, and your role. At this time, I'm going to hand it over to TJ.
Grand Rising, everybody. I appreciate you all for showing up and coming on this cold Friday. That's why I got my hoodie on. Apologize. But yeah, so to get started, managing peer-to-peer triggers and boundaries. This is it came across my mind in multitudes of work, just on the work that we do as FPAs. However, just because of the work we're in and because of the healing we've done and continue to do, it became a thought of mine that maybe many of us are not aware of these peer-to-peer issues. Maybe we have some boundaries that we're not aware of how to put out there for us, or maybe we could be crossing somebody else's boundaries because we're not aware. And then triggers. What does that look like? So this is why I came up with this, and I thought we got positive feedbacks for this. So our learning objectives, we're going to understand peer-to-peer triggers because some of the triggers we have are actually a collective as opposed to individuality. We're going to recognize personal boundaries and their importance and develop strategies to manage triggers and maintain professional relationships and practice skills for healthy peer interactions. And of course, in this is going to be interactive. So if other people have tools and tips and tricks that haven't been presented, feel free to share. So, group question you could put in the chat or come off mute. What are some common triggers that can or do FPAs face with their peers? A trigger of mine is group projects. We're working as a unit to work with a family, and one or two people aren't pulling their weight. So it bothers me. It makes me, and I'm aware of this, and especially in my younger days, it make me want to withdraw from working with that person. Short to the point and kept in business, didn't want to do anything more with this person. So that's when I know some of us, especially we're working collectives, we might have that one person who slacks off, doesn't pull their weight, or just approaches to the deadline of an objective that their supervisor gave them, and you're a part of this, and then consequences can be presented at the table, right, for delayed um, delivery of the project.
In the chat, we have, sorry, I just switched. Angelica said DV situations or most things related to ACS involvement. Cattery said not being included in emails and projects.
And Diana said different views on how to proceed with helping a client. Yeah, these are all very common triggers that we can and often will face. New people relocating to a different facility, or there's another trigger of mine when people say they're strength based or family driven, but when you get in there a week, two, maybe a month down the line, that's really not what's going on. It's kind of a token ideology that yeah, this is what we do, but they're in it for whatever grants that they've been writing for. We have a couple more in the chat. Lack of compassion and empathy. Clients only giving half the situation. Kanetta, could you elaborate on that? Yeah, that's interesting to me. You could come off mute or type it in. Karen said with previous agencies, the confusion of the work that an FPA does versus a case manager with a huge trigger, not giving all the details needed. Oh, for the services you're going to provide. Correct. All right.
Yeah,
Uh,
I meant, I'm sorry. I meant that like if they need help, they only giving you piece by piece by piece. Like you got to pull it out of them. They not telling you everything that's going on. You got to like struggle to help. You know what I'm saying? I
pulling
feel like
teeth.
if you come with all of the things that if you come with the whole story, we can get more done more quickly rather than getting halfway through and then finding out new information.
I understand that. I'm
Hmm.
going to touch on that one in a moment. Um, Pilar said when social workers don't understand the role of an FPA. Angelica said when agencies claim they are for the families, when in truth they're separating families and not working together as a whole. Kathy said misusing language referring to youth and families as clients. And then Lee Lanier said when other people don't take the time to know the families and just assume things. Correct. Yeah, that pulling teeth part, I just kind of want to touch back on. Yes, that's very triggering and frustrating. However, a good portion of that is their families might be wary of sharing too much information because they think you're going to destroy the family, take them apart, or someone's going to go to jail. Um, yeah, so that is their trigger now. If they say the wrong thing, the whole world can just collapse upon them more than it already brought them to this doorstep. But yes, I mean, I get it. If you were forthcoming, we could probably reach these goals sooner. But sometimes we just don't know how deep that trauma is. Excuse me. So, what are the um, peer-to-peer triggers? So, emotional reactions activated by a colleague or workplace interactions. Peer-to-peer triggers are emotional responses that get activated between coworkers, families you work with. These reactions can feel suddenly irritating, and then we might become defensive. Anxiety tends to build, and then, like I said before, with me, you begin to withdraw a little bit. But the triggers don't come out of nowhere. They're usually something that's built upon. It's not usually a one and done and someone blows off. It's usually repetitive situations. So triggers can often connect back to our own histories and boundaries of trauma too. Sometimes the smell, sometimes the behavior or smile can be that trigger for you. For FPAs who often have lived experience and with deep emotional investments in their work, these triggers can be more intense. So some of us who are really passionate about the work that we do, and we have a peer who might not be on that same level or showing as much empathy or concern, can trigger you to be defensive. So common triggers, tones of voice to a degree. I'm not really big on tone. It depends on the context, but I am aware that tone can be a trigger for someone and or their communication style. So that's one of those we have to step back. Feeling dismissed or unheard. I know a bunch of us in team meetings, especially with those holding higher degrees, can make us feel that we're not being heard, shutting us off. Or there's that pattern whenever you bring something to the table the family might be invested in. And the doctor's like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. Uneven workload in situations. I know some of us have been there. Like, if you're really good at the work that you do, your supervisor might see that, but they keep giving you the work, and then you think it's unfair. Sometimes just because you're that good. And yes, that can be unfair and triggering and make and lower your morale. A coworker's crossing boundaries. Of course, this is huge. It's not anything that we are unaware of. Sometimes, once in the blue, or often, we have that one coworker or two who just don't have a pause, cannot read the room. And then workplace conflict or tension that mirrors past experiences can arise. So then the impact of the teamwork and communication and service delivery is then therefore hindered. Unmanaged triggers can affect us. Some of us don't have good poker faces. Some of us are still working through situations. And even if a person triggers you, it might not be the person that you open up to and tell them what's going on. And now, so here's another anxiety-stricken role. You might have to bring your supervisor or HR in to try and bridge some communication. But now look what happens. The other person feels attacked. Now there's more strain in the work environment. So what we have to, what tallies all up is we have to develop awareness and have the first steps to managing these triggers that can often do arise. So recognizing your triggers doesn't mean you're weak or unprofessional. It means you're self-aware. Knowing what sets you off helps you pause, regroup, and respond intentionally rather than impulsively. Awareness leads to healthier boundaries and setting stronger relationships. Um, uh, Alfia stated FPAs are often gaslit by colleagues who don't have lived experience or feel threatened by the deeper connection with the clients. FPAs are often playing a significant role, but it's often met with disrespect in a professional field. I agree. So recognizing your triggers. Self-awareness is the foundation for managing your reactions. So before we can manage a trigger, we have to know what is happening, what's going on. This requires slowing down enough to notice what's going on inside, what we feel, what we think. So for me, usually it's my gut feels something, there's a knot, and my heart rate picks up. So that's already know anxiety settling in. But so that's when I know for me, I have to sit back and say, why is this bothering me so much? And I like to use I'm always, if it's a lifetime, a moment, or a season event. And that's what kind of helps me regulate it to the point. So I also know what I need to discard. But if it's going to be something that affects my work, that affects my family, some things might need to be approached. But now, how do we go about this, right? So like I told you, notice physical, emotional, behavioral signs. We might not know these signs, but I think if we look back at ourselves and we think we're not aware, there are patterns to what lead us to either shutting down, being explosive, overly emotional. So that might take you some time to sit down and take some notes about specific events. And remember, all this that we're doing here is also information and tools we pass to our families. But it might take you some time to do that. And it might be uncomfortable. The truth can often be uncomfortable, but they're not lying when they say that it sets you free. Because now you develop healthy boundaries in a safer space to be more of who you are accepting and loving who you are, right? So, as I said, reflect on these patterns. Who or what can consistently triggers you? Sometimes it's a word, sometimes it's a phrase. Um, so we must just be aware of that. Use supervision, peer support to gain perspective. Use your peers who might be good with, worked with for some time, or in a different agency, and explain to them the scenario that you're going through, and ask if you're overreacting. What would they do? And with your supervisor, once you develop that rapport, especially utilize them, and you're also creating a paper trail for safety, right? And you're setting up rules and regulations for how you're going to govern and navigate moving forward. And so that's what's going to lead you to the last point, which is practicing grounding tools to stay regulated. Simple breathing, pausing before responding, stepping away briefly. Excuse me, I got to use the restroom. Doing a quick self-check on it and can prevent emotional reaction from taking over. Because what happens is, I know many of us are aware of this, when we get emotionally triggered, it's not that we become, for lack of better words, not intelligent, but our focus is so emotionally driven that we negate rational or logical thinking. And that's when sometimes things are said that shouldn't have been said and we can't retract. So if we're aware of these things, we can prevent any hardships. Or for I don't like to apologize if I don't have to. I will, because that's how I was raised. If I messed up, I'll catch it. But I really try my best not to put myself in situations where I'm going to have to say, I'm sorry. So also remember, this triggers our information. It's not a failure about ourselves. So don't beat yourself up if you are triggered by something. A lot of us are like, I can't believe I've been in this work for so long. Why would this bother me? No, this is information that you need to know, and it's a way to develop and protect yourself if necessary. So, tools for handling triggers: pause and take that moment for breathing. When you notice a trigger, give yourself a moment to breathe, collect your thoughts. A few seconds of pause helps preventing from overreaction. I used to have a teacher who would count to 10, but when he did it, he would put his tongue on the roof of his mouth. So it prevented him from necessarily thinking about what triggered him, right? So that's what the tongue did. And then the counting in his head kept the focus on the counting. So then I could get back to the focus and not overreact. So I try and implement that. And I learned that from high school, but still a work in progress. Use the grounding strategies to regulate your bodies and emotions, nervous system, to keep your nervous system back in balance. I always like to, I'll tap on my wrist, kind of brings me back to reality. Some people tap their foot. So now you're feeling something else as opposed to it's just little tips and tricks to kind of distract yourself. If you have a stress ball or a pen that clicks, so hearing the motion can slowly bring you away from what's triggering you. So next is reframe the situation to reduce emotional intensity. How important is it? Why having you work through it? What is it about it that got you to this state? And can you move forward with your day? And you should be able to. But obviously, if it's not something that you worked on, we're still a work in progress. So is there another way to interpret this? Is a question you could ask yourself. Is this about a current moment, or does this remind me of something else? Because sometimes it has nothing to do with what's going on. And then reframing helps shift from personalizing the trigger to understanding it more objectively. Some of our triggers have nothing to do with us. And a lot of us, well, I feel a way. True, we can feel any way that we want. But is it true? And we only can know that if we're going to self-check ourselves. Because if the person just said something, they're a clown, you just don't like their behavior. But now we're letting it affect us. So that goes to where, it's not what you're called, it's what you respond to. And that's the same with our anger. It's okay to have these emotions. It's how we react that will define the situation. So then we must learn to communicate needs clearly and respectfully. If something's bothering you, use a sort of communication. I need a moment to think. Or I'd like to revisit this when we're both calm. This prevents conflict. And once again, prevention from you having to go to HR for something you shouldn't have said or said by accident. Set or reinforce boundaries when necessary. Triggers often signal boundary violation or an unclear expectation. Use this as opportunities to reinstate your limits, whether it's your time, your communication style, or what is acceptable in the workplace. And then again, seek supervision or peer consultation. Your supervisor is not just for your casework. They help you manage interpersonal challenges, and processing your triggers in supervision or with a trusted peer can help you gain perspective. And this is all to just build us as a all around better person. Because this is not just for the workplace, even though this is what it's geared to, but it's in the outside world as well. Um, Document patterns to identify long-term solutions. In certain situations, repeated triggers by writing them down, without naming individuals can reveal patterns. This can help you and your supervisor develop proactive strategies rather than reacting each time the situation shows up. As I said before, triggers are not just a one and done. They will be usually of a past trauma or something that you've endured and didn't even know, but certainly little by little, you start noticing things irk you and will take you to a place that you're not really fully aware of. So now let's recognize these patterns. How is it said? When is it said? What time and place? What season was it? So just being aware of these can help us be more positive and conduct ourselves professionally in all settings. Excuse me. So this is open to everybody. You can put in the chat or what challenges have you faced in peer-to-peer work? I gave one of mine examples. Some what challenges have you faced when it comes to a peer in the workplace? All right, so here's another trigger of mine. To kind of get the ball rolling. When you see your supervisor or someone who has a position is buddy with someone on your level. So you watch them and how they move and work is not done, or they could come in, there's no penalization, but let you have a train delay and now you're on the chopping block. So that's these are real things that happen, especially when we're close with people. You get to see how this turns out for you. So does anybody else have any challenges? Did you care to share from past work or things you've seen with other people?
Hi,
Well,
Ebony. So, yeah, it's kind of like pretty much piggybacking off of your example. So I recently transitioned, like positions, and one of the deciding factors on me doing so was the fact that there was so much favoritism. Because I don't know, they have like a culture of hiring clients, which is not a problem, but to directly supervise them, I feel like that was like very not okay.
it's
And
conflict for
yeah,
sure.
yeah, I mean, like, we can go into that, but just to share an example, right? That's what I experienced. And it makes things very like contentious because like you see like blatant favoritism. And usually, it's like, okay, it is what it is, right? Or you can try to work with it. But when you have conversations and bring up concerns, when things affect the group as a whole and nothing changes, that's when you have to make that decision. Is this something that you can live with? If you can't. So like, yeah, conversations were had. I tried to get things resolved and but that's just the way it was. So I did what I had to do.
Completely understand. Anybody else have anything to share or piggyback off of? All right. So understanding your boundaries. So the definition, it limits that protects your well-being while supporting others. Of course, in this work that we're doing, this is the most important part of this, right? So types of boundaries. They're emotional, professional, physical. And then emotional boundaries are They protect your feelings and your energy and emotional well-being. Emotional boundaries help you avoid taking on coworkers' frustrations, negativities, or stress. They allow you to stay empathetic without becoming overwhelmed. And it's important for those people who are in here and who you might know are empaths, or so you pick up on not just the emotion part, but you pick up on the frequency. So if you can't recognize this, you're going to react in a way that can get you overwhelmed. Professional boundaries, they define appropriate roles, responsibilities, and expectations in the workplace. As an FPA, this means staying with your job role, maintaining confidentiality, in interaction with peers in a respectful, consistent, and predictable way. It also means not slipping into personal dynamics with coworkers. Do your best not to get involved with the chisme, for lack of a better word, or the gossip. I like to just listen. I don't put my 2 cents in. That way, no one can say, "Oh, well, TJ said." My spirit is safe. My mind is safe. I don't want to do that. Physical boundaries. These involve personal space, comfort levels, and physical interactions. Not everyone is comfortable with a close proximity or a touch at work. Respecting physical boundaries helps everyone feel safe and valued in the environment. So, why boundaries matter to peer relationships? They build mutual respect across the board. They clarify what is acceptable and what isn't, reducing misunderstandings and preventing conflicts. When peers understand each other's limits, the trust grows, right? And also with boundaries is it allows you to say no. And if you're always a yes man, if you're always saying that's what it is, it's no longer respectful. You're not being utilized, used and abused. So it becomes abuse because you're just someone who will always say yes, someone who's always there. It gives you the chance and the power and position to say no. Limit yourself, limit your availability. Boundaries prevent their emotional exhaustion and burnout. FPAs bring lived experiences to work, which can make interactions emotionally charged at times. Clear boundaries protect your energy so you can show up consistently for families and your teams. Boundaries will also reduce your triggers. So that's what I'm saying. If you're always too open or too sharing, boundaries can get crossed very easily, especially in the workplace. So many peer-to-peer conflicts are rooted in boundary crossings. Someone overlaps or takes too much space, and it creates tension. Healthy boundaries reduce the chance of being triggered and keeps the workplace stable. And boundaries support professionalism. They help you maintain a healthy balance between being supportive to your teammates and being an effective worker. Boundaries help your interaction and solution face focus rather than overly personals. Keep it professional. Keep the emotions out of it if at all possible. And when boundaries improve, team functionings improve. So when boundaries are clear, communication is clearer, conflict is now reduced or stopped, and collaboration becomes easier. Teams work better when everyone knows their role and respects the limits of others. So, common challenges we face as FPAs: blurring the lines, blurring of professional versus personal versus professional relationships. FPAs often enter the field because of their lived experience, which creates deep, natural, empathetic connection. This closeness can make it easy for relationships to feel more personal than professional. So blurred boundaries may show up via oversharing, texting peers outside of work time, giving favors, or becoming emotionally invested beyond the role. A key reminder for FPAs is connection is powerful, but clarity keeps everyone safe. Be clear on why we're doing this. So reframe professional boundaries as an act of compassion, not distance, because they help FPAs remain stable, consistent, and effective. Use supervision to check in. Is this decision based on my role or my personal feelings? Remember, we must check our personal feelings. We're allowed to have personal feelings, but is it adequate? Is it appropriate? And is there a reason why we're going this route? So reacting emotionally instead of responding intentionally, because FPAs relate strongly to the experience of families, emotionally charged situations could activate their own personal triggers. So emotional reactions often come from a place of protection or identification, but they can escalate conflict or blur professional limits. So an example would include snapping back, shutting down, or overhelping, or defending a family too strongly in team meetings. That's when you become emotionally invested, and that's a problem. So encourage FPAs to create a pause moment before responding. Take one breath again. Tap the ground, be in the moment, and choose an intentional response aligned with their scope of practice. You might have to write it down. Take some notes before the meeting. Points of intent as opposed to points of emotion. The shift from reaction to response not only reduces conflict, but models emotional regulation for families. So, peer pressure and workplace dynamics. FPAs often work on multidisciplinary teams where power differences, seniority, or cultural dynamics can create a pressure to go along with stay quiet or over extended. So peer pressure may come from coworkers who want FPAs to take on the task outside the role, covering for others or align with the workplace culture. Peer pressure may come from coworkers who want to take on additional tasks, and it also can develop cliques in the workplace. FPAs may feel conflicted, wanting to be accepted while trying to uphold professional standards and ethical boundaries. And I must encourage us as FPAs to hold on firmly to our roles and clarity. Don't compromise them just to be a part of a clique, just to try and be cool. It could lead down a negative path. So here's some questions to ask yourself when in meetings or when situations arise. Is this request within my scope of work? Does this support the family's goals? If it doesn't really align with what we're doing right now, chances are save it to another time or, don't even engage it. And then supervision and team communication helps FPAs navigate these pressures in healthy, assertive ways. Bring up scenarios, bring up a situation that might arise or has arisen, and see what other people's thoughts are when you have either group or individual supervision. So setting and maintaining boundaries. Communicate the expectations clearly and early on. Don't wait till you got to the point of already being triggered. So boundaries work best when they are communicated before the issue escalates. Let peers know what your needs and limits are upfront are. Whether it's around time, communication style, workload, or personal space, clarity prevents misunderstandings. I'm one of those people. If I don't know you, you have to ask if you can hug me or touch. You can't just go around touching me, right? So there's certain things I just don't do. And it's the same for you. I don't go on my way just to go invade someone's personal space without permission. Use assertive and respectful language. Assertiveness is not aggression. It means that you are speaking honestly while staying respectful. For example, I'm not available to talk about that right now, but I can revisit it later. You might not even want to revisit it, but it's a polite, respectful way to say, I can't do this. Another way is I need clarity on my roles so expectations don't overlap. So that's something you might want to bring up with your supervisor, just to understand where you are and what you're doing. Assertive communication supports professionalism without creating tension. So it's to say no without guilt when needed. So that's also really important for us as FPAs. A lot of the time we feel like we must go above and beyond. And no is just as healthy as providing the services and resources that we do for our families. So saying no, it prevents burnout. It allows you to work within the scope of your work professionally. And it's also lets them know you're not rejecting any person or the given moment. You're just protecting your energy and your time, right? So say no with purpose, not no in a negative or aggressive light. Maintain consistency in your actions and response. Don't waver. If you said no, stick with your no. If you're unsure, I'm unsure, I'll revisit this later. But try again, be in purpose in what we're doing. So if it's yes, it's no. You're unsure, I will revisit this, or I need to think about it. But don't be a flip flop. Don't be too flexible, especially when it comes to your ethics, your morals, and your values. So boundaries only work when it's upheld. That's what I'm saying. Don't be unwavering. Be steadfast. If you set limits but don't follow through, peers will know what to expect. And being consistent to help others trust your word and understand your needs and clarity. Revisit and adjust boundaries as situations change. If a coworker actually becomes somebody of note in your life, your boundaries might give a little bit more leeway to them. And that's understandable, but you must be able to articulate these as well. And just to make sure that you're concise, you're consistent, and everyone's protected. I think there's a message in the chat. Oh, someone has to leave. All right, Ebony. So I just want to revisit some possible triggers that we can and often come across. I know communication tends to be one of them. So communication differences are one of the most common source of peer-to-peer tension. Delivery, culture, background, education, etiquette, these all play a role. FPAs bring diverse histories and experience and communication styles. So misunderstandings are expected, but a closed mouth doesn't get fed. So ask for clarity on what someone means. Don't automatically jump to offense, or don't automatically just jump on the bandwagon if you don't understand what's going on. The goal is not to perfect communication, but repair, to have clarity and ability to name what you need in the moment. Right? Encourage FPAs to slow down, check assumptions, and ask for clarifying questions with clarifying questions. Excuse me. Lack of respect is another possible trigger. Lack of respect often shows up in dismissive, interrupting, talking over others, or invalidating lived experience. Again, culture might be one of those things. I know in the land culture, I make a joke with my wife that they don't know how to whisper because they talk very loud. But also, I have Afro-Latina daughters. I'm also Sicilian, so you know what? They're also very loud too. But it doesn't mean we're yelling. Communicate what's going on and just have a understanding so feelings don't get hurt, things don't get said. Many FPAs have their own traumas and histories that may respect or feel emotionally important, and violations feel especially triggering. And that goes to the individual. Know thyself, know what triggers you. When you're trying to get to know your team so you work effectively, it's one of those things you should know or ask about. So that way you're not building up tension. Encourage the group to separate intent from impact. And when possible, address the disrespect early and calmly. When I'm interrupted, I feel unheard. Here's an example. Can you slow down so we both be understood? So usually when I say, excuse me, come again, I would need to make sure I doubly heard you because you probably were talking fast. I did hear you, but I want to make sure that I got it accurately. And if not, hey, can you slow that down for me? I'm sorry, I didn't catch you. And sometimes I'll throw it in a joke to me, say, hey, I'm getting old. So, it doesn't appear to be disrespectful. Let's see, anything else? Can I read you cannot, or you're not good at reading the room. Some peers may miss social cues, and that could be upon multitude of reasons. You haven't learned it. It could be a cultural thing. It could be actually how you were made, right? Body language, tone shifts, or signals that the group is overwhelmed or emotional or disengaging. These things do happen. I know sometimes people might mistake me for yelling, but my tone changes when I get excited. But it's not me yelling. But so I have to explain that constantly. I feel sometimes when it gets that way. FPAs can model awareness by gently redirecting the situation or ask a question. Let's pause. I'm noticing the group may need a moment. Here's a statement. You observe something, but a lot of people may not be aware of that. So if you're good at seeing the situation, people can learn from you when you recognize these cues are going off at the moment. Can we check in on how everyone's feeling right now? I know especially being in New York, where especially the city area, we're very individualistic, even though we're so cramped together. But taking that moment, is everyone feeling all right? How are you doing today? Your energy's off. If they say they're fine, they're fine. Well, you did your due diligence. It's not like you're trying to blow them off and not acknowledge them. And some people need to feel acknowledged or want to feel it often or not. So it's also a good way to develop some type of rapport. Um, Teaching emotional attunement is a part of trauma informed practice. Um, how do we check, engage our emotions, and how do we respond to them appropriately? Condescending tones is another one. Condescending tones trigger shame, defensiveness, or feeling inadequacy, especially for peers who have experienced being judged or dismissed by systems or other personal events in their lives. Often the tone was unintentional, but the impact on the receiver matters. So, how do we navigate this, right? Encourage FPAs to reflect on the tone and body language, especially when stressed out or tired. And this is also one of those ones where we got to take note of culture. Some cultures we do eye contact, others do not. Others, if your legs are crossed, might be a signal that you're closed off or arms crossed. So it's one of those things we need to be aware of and who we're interacting with. Provide language for addressing it. So I want to understand you, but the tone feels sharp. Can we reset? Or could you reset? Could you say that in a different way for me? You might need a different clarity. Some things might not stick to you. I know this is important. Let's try again in a calmer way. Because sometimes the situation is heated. You're too excited. And it might take that voice and that delivery to calm it down, and a slower pace, change of tone can make all the difference. So seniority is another one of those triggers. Hierarchy issues arise when individuals believe they have more authority due to experience, age, or time in the field. Peer roles are designed to be collaborative, not hierarchical, but it happens. Seniority becomes a problem when it silences others or discourages new FPAs from sharing insight. Facilitators can reinforce equal footing by we all bring something valuable to the table. The experience doesn't have a rank. So that goes with when we're working with our families, is understanding that their lived experience, you have one when you share it. It's not to one up them. It's just to show that we are on the same playing field. And we are all either trying to ascend from this by continuously developing ourselves, or we're a work in progress. Encourage humility and mutual respect regardless of the tenure. So these are some of the triggers that I know that come up just in a basic workplace, and sometimes even outside, dealing with our peers in communities. But just being aware how to use certain verbiages can make all the difference. So we want to look at conflict resolutions with our peers. Active listening, empathy are key. So active listening means you're giving your full attention, not interrupting, or assuming, or preparing a defense. Right? We're listening to hear, not listening to respond. Use effective statements like "What I hear you saying is," and this will help you to show understanding. Empathy helps to de-escalate the room. Acknowledge the other person's feelings. That doesn't mean you agree, but it shows respect and makes problem solving easier. As FPA's, empathy is a strength to be used with families, bringing in our peer interactions and builds trust and reduces defensiveness. And then we want to focus on the issue, not the person. It goes to something like I heard the other day. when people are coming at you, a lot of the time it's not even them. It might be something going on in the background, and they're just responding to it. So conflict escalates when it becomes personal. So keep the conversation centered on the specific behaviors, the situation, or misunderstanding, not the personality of their coworker or their character. So it should be, if someone's bothering, I don't like the way that you spoke to me in this tone. Don't. So a negative context, people like you always do this, or you always do this. So now it becomes the person that you're attacking, and not exactly what got you to the place, and got what got you to that place in the first place. Excuse me. So use phrases like "what when X happened, right? It affected Y. So when you did this, it affected me this way, or affected that person that way." Let's look at the list of situations instead of assumptions about each other, right? Because a lot of times it happens when we make it about the person. Again, it's not a good portion of the time. It's not even about the person. So let's keep the dialogue constructive rather than emotional. Negotiation and compromise strategies. It's the effective conflict resolution often requires finding middle ground. Ask yourself and the peers, what do we both need? What can each of us adjust? To compromise doesn't mean giving up your boundaries. It means finding solutions where both sides feel heard and respected. Sometimes the answer is sharing responsibilities differently, adjusting communication styles, or agreeing on clear expectations moving forward. So when to escalate or seek mediation? Not every conflict can be resolved in a peer-to-peer way. So when the escalation of a conflict repeats, despite attempts to resolve it, probably should get a supervisor involved or a third party. Boundaries are repeatedly crossed. No matter how many times you address it, it keeps happening. Communication becomes disrespectful and unsafe. Now the person's speaking to you in a different manner. It's not appropriate for the workplace. The issues affect your ability to serve families. So seeking supervision or mediation is not snitching. It's protecting workplace safety. It develops professionalism, keeps it professional, and team functioning is at all time manageable and productive. Supervisors can help facilitate a neutral conversation, clarify each other's roles, and ensure policies are followed. All right. So with that, we always have to talk about our self-care and resilience. So the importance of self-care in preventing burnout. Self-care isn't optional in peer work. It's a professional requirement. FPAs carry emotional weight from their lived experience, the families they support, and their interactions with peers. Without without intentional self-care, stress accumulates and leads to burnout, compassion, fatigue, and reduced effectiveness. Taking care of yourself ensures you can continue to show up with clarity, empathy, and stability. So techniques, mindfulness, time management, peer support. So mindfulness is like deep breathing, short grounding exercises or mindful check-ins during the day help stay calm. It helps to calm the nervous system. Mindfulness builds emotional regulations. It helps reduce the intensity of triggers and conflict. Time management. It's setting realistic daily goals, organizing your tasks, and avoiding overcommitting helps prevent you being overwhelmed. Protecting time for breaks and focusing on what's within your role creates healthier work rhythms. And then peer support. Healthy peer support means connecting with coworkers, not just for work tasks, but emotional encouragement and perspective. Talking through challenges with trusted peers normalizes stress and creates resilience through shared experiences. Establishing a personal boundary plan. A boundary plan is a proactive tool that outlines what you need to do to stay healthy and effective. It may include your early warning signs of stress or being overwhelmed, what boundaries you need with peers, communication, workload, emotional space, how you respond if a boundary is crossed, and what supports you will seek, supervision, breaks, peer consultation. Creating this plan ahead of time helps you to stay consistent and prevents you from reacting impulsively when stressed or triggered. And then important, take time off when needed. We all have sick time, vacation time, especially if you're full time. And a good portion of organizations also give you your own 3 or 4 personal days. Some organizations give you a day off on your birthday. Please take them. Please do something that you love to do, would love to try doing. Change the scenario, help continuously rejuvenate you and help you be as optimal and professional as possible. So, interactive activity, just come off mute, please. Identifying triggers and choosing the best response. So, some of the examples I've given you here and from what we discussed earlier. So a peer has a harsh tone, receiving last minute task. You can come off, you don't have to write it down, but what's your initial emotional reaction? What emotion comes up first, and how would your body respond? So if someone came at you with a harsh tone, what is your initial response? And then I would like to hear how you would do it professionally, if at all possible.
TJ, I would say that my first response would be, is everything okay? You know, is there something you need? Is there something bothering you? And you get in trouble for that one too. But the first thing I would say, is everything okay? Do you need anything? And that'll make them pause and really think about their feelings, hopefully.
I agree with that. Thank you. Well, what about feeling dismissed in a team meeting?
I'm raising my hand. I'm serious. I'm like, I'll wait my turn, and then I'll make sure that they don't change the subject. Yep. Redirect them back to the original question or whatever was going on.
Thank you. Vanessa said, I get flushed. I try and find out the issue and I calm down. Pilar said anger, but self-regulation and deep breathing before responding. Kateri said having concern that there is something going on with the other person. Kim stated, I need a moment to figure out how I'm going to, how I'm feeling before I respond. And William said, I would say, I'm sorry, can you repeat yourself? Yeah, initially in my head, I won't lie, I have so many thoughts. I think that's also the ADHD in me that go off, and so the hood in me wants to respond this way, the professional wants to respond, the dad in me wants to do something else, and then, but the business always comes back. It seems like something else is going on. Can I help you with what's going on? And that way I can kind of gauge a picture. If they say no, nothing. All right, well, I didn't appreciate your tone. And if something's going on, you could either come at me correct, or maybe you need to go speak to somebody else who could help you, because I know firsthand I didn't do anything. And if you're telling me there's nothing I did, then this interaction shouldn't even be happening, right? Leilani said, I'm always advocating that my voice and position matters. Then a calming response. Yeah, I agree. So I was throwing some references in here. There's so much trauma-informed care. I'm actually in school to be a trauma specialist. Look at there's so much useful information, and it's not just for the work that we do; it's for ourselves, and often gets overlooked. And trying to gather as much information, do some self work. I like shadowing. I love that work because it really helps you dive deep into who you are, who you've been hiding, or an aspect of yourself you never met before, because things can come up again that lead to our triggers and can help induce a negative response or energy if we're aware of the situation because someone's tone drove you off. Because sometimes we're all going through things at home, and they could just be that one word that person you never had an issue with before. Let it be that one day. And then, Lord have mercy, we said something we shouldn't have said or responded in the way. Now we have to talk to HR. We have to be written up for something. Kenneth said, I asked for this. I asked him, is everything okay? I don't take things personally, so I wouldn't be offended, but I would ask what's going on. Alfia says, sometimes you can be a non-reactive and can be with someone who sees you in the way they want to. That's when you have to disengage, not allow it to break you. Cameron said, I'm trying to step back, and then I might say, ouch, to them to alert them to their tone example. If they ask a question in a hard tone, I would pause and say, ouch, and answer the question. I like that. Kenyatta said, my organization is very supportive. There are plenty of opportunities to voice your concerns, and they're really good at making sure I'm supported and have all the things I need to work effectively. Lonnie said, this was really good. Thank you. Oh, thank you. You're welcome. You have to run. Thank you so much for participating. But yeah, so by asking, is everything okay? By elaborating, like that was uncalled for, or that was rough, that was sharp. It will kind of break that, especially in your delivery, especially if you're not going to be aggressive. You know, it will get them to pause, and oftentimes they'll say, "Oh, I apologize. I just got this going on." What I like to do even before something goes on, like I know it in myself, it's like I apologize. You know, I get snippy today where I have a lot going on in my head, and a lot of stuff is not for the workplace. So not even with my peers. I just got stuff going on. I'm trying to leave it at the door, but I will apologize if I get out of pocket. And that's taking ownership from the beginning. So that's also one of those things, being self-aware of who we are, so we don't induce a negative workplace, right? And sometimes you might not feel comfortable going to your supervisor. I hope you have a close friend outside of work. Maybe in your lunch break, you shoot them a text, give them a call, or if you have somebody who could, if this is not the place for you to open up and vent to. Precious said, I take a deep breath, replay what was said in my head, Rob, their tone, and then ask them, is everything okay with situation at hand and what we're trying to address? So you can see there's so many different ways and tools that we could address situations. And I think just in our overcrowded city, inflation, what you call it, it's easy to get irritated and bark at someone and just get ready to be defensive. Uh, but to have a holistic approach of healing and unity will take us, unfortunately or fortunately, extra work and humility to take those step backs, to take those deep breaths, to take a time out. I give myself time out. My children try and ground me. And I'm like, yes. They're like, yo, why do you like being grounded? I'm like, because it means I don't have to do anything. I get to sit on my bed. They're like, no, I'm like, I don't even want my phone. And I'm not even a phone hog. Just let me lay down. not, not have this responsibility. And then I can have these thoughts and work things out and come to a place. A lot of people don't see that, but give yourself a timeout works wonders. There's a lot going on in this chat here. Angelica said, my supervisor colleagues here at JCCA is very supportive and care about everyone. It's well-being. My supervisor makes me sure I'm okay professionally and personally, and even helps with my new baby. Oh, God bless you. Congratulations on the baby. Dan said, oh, you're very welcome, Diana. Always appreciate you for coming in. So before we go, select one strategy from an earlier slide, pausing before reacting using grounding techniques, and share your response. What was your trigger? What was your tool you chose? And why would that tool be effective?
I'd say pausing
Okay,
for
you say it
reacting.
verbally. Can we come off? Going on. Yeah, there's my man. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, TJ? I say pausing before reacting because you gain so much more information to actually have a better view of the situation. of why they're approaching you in a certain way that makes you feel uncomfortable. You have a moment to analyze yourself as well as hear them out,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe they just need a moment. And it doesn't matter whether it's, a colleague from another department, your supervisor, or even another FPA or a caseworker. They could just be having a moment, and you're just there in the middle of the blast radius.
Exactly. Absolutely right. Thank you. Anyone else?
I
got
like I
one.
like the setting a clear boundary. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No,
Go
no,
ahead.
no, no. Go on. No, no, no. This is for you. I was just trying to chime in to get the juices
Okay.
flowing. Go on.
Setting a clear boundary, especially when you're actually in a new job like myself, and you have crisis going on, and it's after work, and you're like, do I let them know, this is what's going on, and it's just these boundaries, they're hard. And then especially if you're someone like myself that's always saying, sure, yes, 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 yes. And I love where the slide says no. It's okay to say no. And the reason why, not just to say no, but always making sure that you're clear on the reason why. And that was great. I really like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, I was going to say a grounding technique. I know some people have plants by their desks. Why don't you go touch the plant? A lot of us are really disconnected. We're always wearing shoes, especially when it's cold outside, but transferring that energy and also, again, that touching and with purpose, you can kind of filter out what you need and then reapproach the situation that got you there with a clearer mind. So it's just a different way of sharing that negative energy that most people don't even think about doing, but it could definitely help. And some things trigger you. Me, I'm a physical person. Obviously, I just can't go around breaking things, but to be able to go outside, touch a plant, touch a tree, you know what I mean? To just or go put my hands on the water and just kind of just hear the water run and just redirect that energy and then figure out why did it trigger me? Or why was this person triggered? And then, like I said, it's an effective tool because you're redirecting your mind's attention. You're physically doing something, and then it's also could be audible. If the plant smells, now you engage your sense of smell. So you're really changing the scenario that and really preventing it from escalating in a way that it would never have to if other avenues aren't in front of you to utilize, right? Just food for thought I wanted to share. Does anybody else have anything that they would like to? So, some key takeaways: recognize and manage your triggers effectively. Remember, triggers are normal. It's a normal part of our work. It's a normal part of our lives. Awareness is the first step to managing them. What are your triggers? And if you have triggers, what are you be using to negate them or navigate effectively to be appropriate and professional? When FPAs can identify early signs of activation, tightness, frustration, defensiveness, shutting down, pit in your stomach, tears in your eyes, whatever it is, they get pause and choose a healthier response. Excuse me, let me use the bathroom. I'll be right back. I know this is important, but something wrong with that. Effective triggers management protects both the FPA and families they support, keeping interactions safe and grounded, and encourage ongoing reflection. What came up for me today? What helped me stay regulated? Establish and maintaining healthy boundaries. Boundaries are essential. They're not barriers, but tools that protect emotional well-being, clarity, and trust. Consistent boundaries help FPAs avoid burnout, over-involvement, or blurred personal professional lines. Boundaries allow FPAs to show fully as professionals while still offering empathetic connections. Excuse me. Regularly ask, Is this within my role? Is this suitable or sustainable for me? And use communication and conflict resolution strategies. Be clear and respectful with your communication. This reduces misunderstanding and prevents interpersonal tension. Conflict is not a sign of dysfunction, it's a natural part of collaborative work. FPAs can navigate conflict by staying curious instead of defensive, naming the issue calmly, and focus on shared goals. Skills such as reflective listening, body language, and eye statements help de-escalate tension and create mutual understanding. And lastly, self-care strengthens personal relationships and personal resilience. Self-care isn't an option in our peer work. It's a must. It's a professional responsibility. FPAs who prioritize rest, reflection, and emotional regulations are better able to support families and collaborate with peers. Also, in your work, they'll show that you're ready to be elevated to other positions, right? Because you could navigate, you hold yourself accountable, you know a tone, how to manage yourself. And when opportunities open up, you might have a better foot in the door. But FPAs care for themselves, they model wellness and set healthy expectations for families and coworkers. And self-care builds long-term resilience, it reduces burnout, and improves the team dynamic. So in conclusion, managing triggers is a skill that requires self-awareness, reflection, and practice. It emphasizes that recognizing triggers isn't a one-time event, it's an ongoing process. FPAs may pay attention to their reactions, reflect on patterns, and practice strategies consistently. Over time, the skills improve emotional regulation and professional interactions. Healthy boundaries protect both personal well-being and professional relationships. Boundaries aren't just about saying no, but they help reduce conflict and create clear expectations for how you interact with peers. Meaning, maintaining boundaries supports both your emotional health and effectiveness of your team. Peer-to-peer challenges can be opportunities for growth when approached with communication, empathy, and assertiveness. Conflict and differences are inevitable. Viewing challenges as opportunities allow you to develop strong communication skills. It deepens empathy and practices assertiveness, all of which improves collaboration and trust amongst peers. Ongoing self-care, supervision, and peer support strengthens resilience and effectiveness. Self-care, mentorship, and personal guidance are not optional. They are essential. Regular check-ins with supervisors and peers help process emotional challenges, reinforces strategies for triggers and boundaries, ensures FPAs remain effective and supported in their notes and their roles. And then applying these strategies daily to foster a positive, collaborative, and trauma-informed work environment. This encourages participants to integrate what they've learned into everyday practice. Small, consistent actions, pausing before reacting, setting boundaries, using tools from this training or others, helps to create a workplace that is safe, respectful, supportive for both FPAs and the families they serve. And thank you. Any
Thank you.
questions, comments?
Thank you so much, TJ, for all the wonderful information. And thank you everyone for joining our TA call. I'm going to put a survey in the chat if you want to take just a few moments to fill that out before you leave. We would greatly appreciate that. And we will still leave it open for any questions or comments for TJ.
TJ, keep doing what you're doing, man.
Appreciate it.
All right.
Um,
As well as the family, the rest of the family together staff. Thank you.
You know,
Appreciate
Albert, I was gonna be like, okay then.
No, I remember all of y'all very well, and I appreciate y'all.
Yeah.
We love that you show up
There's a
all
few
the time.
flaws that I realized about myself that I had to take into perspective. No, and it's even better when you hear it from a peer that you experience these things. Therefore, you see you're not the only one that experiences it.
Mhm.
You're the only one that can correct it. No, so I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
We appreciate you, TJ.
Thank you
That's
so
right.
much.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thank you. Thank you.
I did share the link to our YPA Supervisor Experience Cafe, or if you or anyone you work with supervises YPAs, as